Welcome to Weekly Pulse, your heartbeat to what's trending in sports. Welcome to this edition of Weekly Pulse. I'm Mackenzie Salmon. Let's kick it off with some baseball talk. Yes, it's back for real this time. It's opening week for baseball, and here are the storylines you may have forgotten that will define this unprecedented Major League Baseball season. Garrett Cole is a Yankee, and Mookie Betts is a Dodger. For both teams, it's World Series or bust. Both New York and LA were already favorites to win their respective pennants, and these blockbuster deals set those expectations over the moon. Anything less than a World Series appearance for each team will be considered a failure of a season. The Angels may finally have a supporting cast to help get Mike Trout to the playoffs. The healthy Shohei Ohtani and the addition of Anthony Rendon may give Mike Trout the best Angels team he's ever been a part of. But will it be enough to finally get him back to the playoffs and in the national spotlight? Keep in mind, Trout is expected to miss part of the season due to the birth of his child. The Astros begin redemption tour. Remember when Major League Baseball's biggest concern was the handling of the Astros cheating scandal back in March? Prior to the pandemic, this scandal was going to be the dominant storyline of the season. And while fans from opposing teams won't get their say this year, you can bet their division rivals will have plenty to say, or throw their way. The insanity and unpredictability of 60 games. As we saw with the Nationals World Series run last year, baseball can be quite unpredictable. The defending champs started the year 19-31 in the first 50 games. Even the 100-win Astros had a 7-game losing streak at one point last year. That would end their season this year. One of the points of having 162 games is to minimize randomness and make sure the most talented teams reach the postseason. A 60-game spring will not have the same effect. And that may be the greatest thing to happen to this sport in a long time. Every game will matter that much more. And every team, maybe for the first time ever, will feel like they have a shot to win. So, with that in mind, let's play ball. This baseball season is going to be the strangest, the fastest, and frankly, the boldest campaign Major League Baseball has ever put on. So, why not have a few bold predictions from our experts? We start with Bob Nightingale on who's going to boom or bust during this 60-game sprint.
Don't have a bad week, or you may be sitting out. So, my biggest surprise in the 2020 season is the New York Mets. Yes, they haven't been around the playoffs since 2015, when they lost to Kansas City Royals in the World Series. But this still has a star-studded rotation, even without Noah Syndergaard. Of course, led by Jacob deGrom, the two-time Cy Young winner. My disappointing team, still the same division, Atlanta Braves. A very young rotation. They can't afford to have hiccups. I don't see them repeating for the third time and winning the division.
A team that finished 22 games under 500 and last in the National League West a year ago is my pick for the surprise team of 2020, the San Diego Padres. They have a budding superstar in Fernando Tatis Jr., and their team leader Manny Machado is still just 28 years old. As for a disappointment, I hate to say it, but the New York Mets are going to find competing in the National League East very difficult, especially without Noah Syndergaard on the mound. And can Pete Alonso again provide the offense the Mets need? I don't think he's going to get enough support to make them a factor in the division.
A team that I like to surprise? The Boston Red Sox. It's easy to forget about them with the Yankees and the Rays in that tough AL East. But Nathan Eovaldi looks really good in early training action. And the lineup still has JD Martinez and Andrew Benintendi, who's out to prove that last year's off year was just an aberration. A team I expect to disappoint? How about the Houston Astros? They lost Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander was bothered by injury in the original spring training, and they've had a lot of key missing pieces. It's going to be tough to get continuity quickly, and in an AL West that gets tougher by the minute, we see them relinquishing their divisional crown and lucky to grab a wild card spot, if that.
Coming up after the break, we sit down with Olympic legend Rulon Gardner, whose life story is sure to leave you inspired. You won't want to miss it. We sat down with Olympic wrestling legend Rulon Gardner to discuss his fascinating life, which included one of the greatest upsets in sports history, multiple near-death experiences, and an ongoing battle with his weight.
In watching the documentary, there's so many great messages: determination, intestinal fortitude, never giving up. What do you want the person, the viewer that's watching at home, what do you want them to take away from this documentary?
As people watch the documentary, I hope that they can walk away and say, wow, here's a person that had been through so much, good things in his life and has been through so much tragedy, but he's gotten back up every time he's been knocked down. He's found a way just to keep coming back. And people say, you need to keep reinventing yourself. I'm like, I don't want to reinvent myself. I just need to improve myself every day because, it's one thing at a time. You don't become very successful at wrestling or whatever business world by luck. You have to develop those characteristics every day. I know already by people watching the trailer being like, oh my gosh, your story's amazing. I can't wait to watch it because, I didn't know some of this stuff about you. And hopefully, it gets to the point where they can see the things I went through and the things that, they're going through now. I've had hundreds of friends already say, man, your story has impacted my life so much. And, the kids on my team, they're just like, wow, coach, we think you're kind of this superhero. And I'm like, no, I'm just a guy who's really focused when it comes time to do what I need to do on the mat. And I want them to have that same mentality. And so this is a good opportunity to share my story with the world. Even though there's lots of ups and lots of downs, it's about getting back up. And like I said at the end, I want to be a good person. I want people to think, wow, you know what? He was an Olympic champion. That's part of who I was. But also he's a good person and he treats people with respect.
Coming up, Gardner dives deeper into his historic battle against Alexander Rulon in the 2000 Olympic Summer Games and what it took to beat the man they called the Russian Bear. Stay tuned.
Looking back at your most famous moment against Alexander Rulon at the Olympics, it still amazes me that you were able to win. He came into the match with 887 wins in his previous 888 matches, 3 gold medals, hadn't lost in 13 years. What were your emotions right before that match began? And did you really think you had a chance?
Did I think I had a chance? No. Really, honestly, no. Because 97, when I wrestled him one time previously, he threw me on my head 3 times. So warming up, going through the process of getting ready for the match, my coaches are like, Rulon, he's nervous. Rulon, you may have a chance. And I'm like, okay, thanks for building me up. But they're like, no, seriously, he's not quite focusing because I'd won my semifinals, being down 2-0. I came back and I won it 3-2 because of my conditioning. And so Rulon, I don't think was, truly prepared for that match. And so I went out there, I didn't really think I had a great chance. But the one thing about it is when you're given a chance, no matter if it's wrestling or education, whatever it is, you go out there and you give 100%, even though, it's like Mount Everest. You step at the base camp at Mount Everest, you don't step it and climb it one step. You take it in many small increments. And that's the way we looked at that match. Rulon, you keep the score close. You keep it competitive. You give yourself a chance to win that match by keeping it close and getting in his face because Rulon is big and strong. You need to be fast and quick. And so Coach Steve Frazier, my Olympic coach, he was like, hey, you know what? You need to change the tempo. You make him wrestle your match. And so we set first contact. So if you see that match, Rulon would reach, but I'd always try to find a way to maneuver myself, give myself a chance to get an angle where he didn't feel comfortable. So then it made him take an extra step. And seeing as big and strong as he was, we used to wrestle 2-hour grind matches. So for me, I love to push people in their conditioning because I was really good at being a good conditioned wrestler. Rulon used all that muscle, and you knew at the start of the match he was going to be strong as a bear. But as time went on through the match, all that muscle, couldn't be used because the body just slowly gets exhausted. And that was one of our strategies. And then luckily, he started to get tired. He changed the way. At one point, he actually covered my mouth trying to block me from breathing. Where did that come from? Well, here's Rulon trying to find a way to beat me. And at the end of the match, he just realized I don't have anything left in the gas tank. And, it's just crazy and kind of like magical to see how that match transpired because nobody in the 13 years really stood a chance against him. But, I think the coaches and the right frame of mind, anything's possible.
Did he talk at all during the match? Like when you guys were locked up, did he whisper anything to you at all during the match?
He said something in Russian, and I don't speak Russian that well. And I asked after the referee, and I'm like, what was going on there? And I guess he was saying some words in Russian the referee didn't appreciate. So I don't know what it was, and didn't bother me at that point. I'm not worried about talking. I'm not worried about. I have a job to do, and that's one of our goals is take care of business. Time is now. You take what's in front of you. You don't play the mind games. You don't say, oh, well, he's a Russian, colonel or any of this stuff about his persona, because Karelin is who he is, and that's this magnificent wrestler, and you got to use every ounce of your energy to try to beat him and not worry about all this extra stuff. And he was saying stuff, and I didn't care what he said, as long as, he didn't come out there and score. I could let him say anything to me because I had one goal, and that was to compete. And even after the match was over, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to win this gold medal. Or else they're going to say I did something wrong or I cheated or something, because they wanted him to win. So, you knew that the deck was stacked against you going into it.
That's it for this edition of Weekly Pulse. There is lots to look forward to this weekend with a massive slate of games scheduled for sports fans across the country. I'll surely be keeping an eye on how this Yankees-Nats series wraps up. Could this be a World Series preview? We'll see.